In life, time moves on. People change, nature evolves. Nothing stays the same forever. The same is true for the Pokemon trading card game. Decks rise and fall, cards rotate, new strategies emerge, while old ones fade into memory. Some archetypes vanish completely, while others, like VMAX, stand the test of time. Every new set brings excitement, hype, and hope. Sometimes that excitement leads to greatness, but other times it turns to disappointment. Reshiram and Zekrom tag team, Rayquaza VMAX, cards like that came in with sky-high expectations only to quietly exit the meta, remembered more for what they could have been rather than what they were. And when Twilight Masquerade was released, Dragapult EX looked like it might follow the same path. A dragon type with a throwback feel, powerful on paper, but maybe too slow, too awkward, too fragile. Time moved on, but Dragapult didn't fade. This is the short, sweet, and still unfolding story of Dragapult EX. When Dragapult EX first entered the format, it didn't come with an obvious partner. Its main attack, Phantom Dive, promised clean damage and controlled spread, 200 to the active, and 60 damage counters to your opponent's bench Pokemon any way you like. A deceptively powerful feel, if you could get there in time, that was. For many players it felt familiar, in fact, too familiar. Just a few years ago, Dragapult VMAX debuted with a strikingly similar attack, 130 damage to the active and 5 damage counters on the bench. At the time, it was a menace, silent, controlling, and hard to break. But as power creep set in, it slowly faded away. So when Dragapult EX arrived, expectations weren't just high, they were loaded with baggage.
And does exactly what Dragapult VMAX did, but better, while giving up less prizes and having no weakness. This is a phenomenal card.
Would this be a spiritual successor, a return to form, or just another ghost of a deck, trying to haunt a faster, stronger format? Players experimented. Some leaned into heavy item-based draw with Arven, others played it with Xatu or even Charizard EX, hoping to ramp into Phantom Dive quickly and pressure the board before opponents could even respond. But the deck had problems. It stumbled. Evolving up to stage 2 reliably was clunky, momentum slipped, and setups collapsed under pressure. And in a format that rewards speed, power, and flexibility, Dragapult just didn't have the pieces. Yet. As the weeks passed, enthusiasm cooled. Some players dropped the deck entirely. It seemed destined to share the same fate as Reshiram Zekrom or Rayquaza VMAX, overhyped, underplayed, and put in the binder. Dragapult ended up being an attacker in Regidrago as it was faster to set up, more consistent, and way more aggressive. Most people thought that was that. Dragapult was sentenced to a life living in the shadows of Apex Dragon. The Dragapult decks that were around at the time all ran engines that other decks already had. Pidgeot worked with Charizard, so why not Dragapult? Well, in short, Dragapult wasn't Charizard. People were pairing Dragapult with cards that weren't meant for it, so they kept looking for an answer. One that was there from the start. Dracloak was the card that evolved into Dragapult, and it had an ability. One that was written off as a nice addition, but not as an engine. It let you look at the top 2 cards of your deck, put one in your hand, and the other at the bottom of the deck. So what changed to make this ability so strong? Well, nothing really. What did change though was the approach to Dragapult.
Is this the new way to play Dragapult EX? I've still got so many questions, and we've just seen it perform so perfectly.
Instead of using other identities, it took one of its own. A player by the name of Ryuki Okada leaned into the slower playstyle of Dragapult, building up a powerful board state while spreading damage, and avoiding prize cards. But why? You see, Ryuki and the other Japanese players at Dortmund Regionals played a very different list compared to the rest of the players. Ryuki focused on an incredibly strong card by the name of Dusknoir. Dusknoir is a controversial card, evolving from Dusclops, which has an ability to knock itself out and place 5 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon. Dusknoir is very similar. It has the exact same ability, but instead of 5 damage counters, it was lucky number 13. This allowed you to manipulate damage across the board, and activate cards such as Roxanne and Countercatcher without having to rely on your opponents. This gave the deck a lot more freedom. Now you no longer have to force yourself to attack as fast as possible, as you could often take 4 to 6 prize cards in one turn just after 2 attacks.
Dragapult, a deck that tends to find a way, even when it's on the very backest of foots.
Now, if we take Dracloak's slow build-up of cards, Rotom V, with the ability to draw 3 cards at the end of your turn, and Pheasantipity drawing 3 cards if one of your Pokemon knocked out during your opponent's last turn, you're drawing up to 10 cards during these turns. It allowed Dragapult to set up quite easily, as with the use of Sparkling Crystal as the choice for the A spec, you could attack for only 1 energy. Sparkling Crystal was also easy to find with Arven. You could search for it and an item such as Ray Candy to evolve into Dragapult. Now, not only did you have an incredibly strong, slower game plan, you also had that aggressive option as you could attack on your second turn with Dragapult, as you no longer needed so much setup. One Arven alongside Rotom could often just get you there. And when Dortmund Regional came around, it was clear how this would all end.
So it looks like the Arven is being eyed up here. Gonna grab a Forest Silstone and a Rare Candy.
We could be lining up a Dusknoir play here.
Because Dusknoir would actually KO bench Squawkabilly, right?
It would indeed.
Phantom Dive as well, that won't work as well, right? Here we do see the cursed Blasto, that's going to target into the Lugia V-Star on the bench. Rahul takes a prize card down to 3. A counter catcher into the Lugia V-Star as well.
4 prize turn.
4 prize turn. Here we go. Phantom dive into the active. Damage goes on the benched Iron Hands. And that gets around Legacy Energy, KOing 4 prize cards in 1 attack. Goodness gracious me, Ryuki. Goes flip heads for Ryuki. So it looks like Luminion could be grabbed. Luminion bosses orders into that damaged Squawkabilly EX, and Ryuki takes game 1 here in our Dortmund Regional final and did it with an absolute masterclass, completely dissecting Rahul's board. Game 1 goes to Ryuki for Iono as well. Temple of Sinnoh coming down, replaces Mesagoza, special energy now only counters colorless, and we do see Ryuki shuffling up the deck, and Iono being played as well, Ross. Goodness gracious me, what a turn.
Oh, here comes the damage. We get the KO. Here comes 2 damage counters onto Archeops to get the KO. Sure, I did not see it there.
Oh, and it's a concession.
Ryuki Okada is your Dortmund Regional champion. Our first regional champion of a European event this season is actually a player from Japan. It's Ryuki Okada.
As time went on, Dragapult continued to evolve. A newer deck that really leaned into the slower, more consistent setup was an unlikely pair of Dragapult and Iron Thorns EX. The format had a reliance on Pokémon with abilities: Pidgeot, Rotom, Luminion, Ogerpon. All of these were rulebox Pokémon with abilities. So when you take all those abilities away, a lot of decks really struggle. That's exactly what Iron Thorns aimed to achieve. While it was in the active position, Pokémon of the rulebox had no abilities, and Dragapult didn't have any anyway, so you were really only hurting your opponent. This allowed you to slow the game down and build up your board and damage with Volt Cyclone, and towards the end of the game, Dragapult would come in and close the game out with a Phantom Dive. And for a while, this was the way to play Dragapult. Prismatic Evolutions was a set that mainly focused on collecting. There was only 2 cards that players were really excited for. However, one of these cards might go down as the best addition Dragapult has ever gotten. Budew is a 30 HP free retreat little goober, who has one of the most insane attacks I've ever seen. 0 energy required, and you deal 10 damage. Oh yeah, your opponent also can't play items on the next turn. Sorry, almost forgot to mention that. This was insane. Dragapult now gained a real way to slow down the format while leaning fully into Tricloak as the main draw engine. Forcing item lock upon your opponents was great, as they couldn't evolve into their stage 2s using Rare Candy, and if you went second and used Itchipollen, it was often really difficult for your opponent to set up. Let's not overlook the 10 damage either. Popular Pokemon such as Ogerpon EX had 210 damage, and with Budew hitting for 10 damage and Dragapult's Phantom Dive dealing 200, well, I'll let you do the math there. This changed everything, and going into 2025, Dragapult was a different menace. The placement started getting more consistent, multiple top 8s at regionals and SPEs, and as EUIC rolled around, this was the proving grounds for Dragapult. It had everything it needed to exceed. As the stats rolled around for day 1, there it was, Dragapult, the most popular deck in the room. Round 1 featured arguably the best ever player to touch the game, Tord Reklev, and he was on stream, utilizing, you guessed it,
knocked out, no more flip the script for the time being.
Do we have Boss? Do we have Professor Turo? We have an Ultra Ball. There is going away a Lance. Do we even have a Luminion there? Which would be a little bit of an option. What are we going for instead? It's our old friend Blood Moon Ursaluna. We don't need any trickery. Blood Moon Ursaluna does 240 damage. That is enough to go and get the KO on the active there, taking those last couple of prizes, winning with Blood Moon and giving Tord a 2-0 victory in our round 1 feature match at the European International Championship 2025.
Dragapult alongside Budew took down the first round. And as day 2 rolled around, Dragapult was still the most dominant deck in the room. This boded well for its chances on Championship Sunday. The finals was set, Dragapult EX against Terapagos Clorf. There was also a familiar face at the table, Ryuki Okada. He was in the finals, the one who pioneered this deck, the one who gave it its first major victory. However, this time, he wasn't at the wheel, he was against his own creation. Natalie Miller was the one piloting Dragapult. Game 1 was underway.
There's a fist bump, ladies and gentlemen, in the crowd. Make some noise for your Masters Division final. Okay, so we start off with Ryuki and that lovely Monkey Dory, and Natalie with that Pheasantipity. And it looks like Ryuki is going to be taking our first turn.
Yeah, one of those very good things about not actually starting one of those Dreepies is actually having a Pokemon that can't be instantly knocked out from some of those tips and tricks that we've already mentioned and started talking about in Ryuki's deck. Those poisons opportunities with that Pecharunt to try and take an easy KO and actually end the game sometimes on his first turn. But this is the opportunity to do that first deck search here and actually identify exactly what is available. Actually, hang on. This is actually...
Yeah, that double turbo. Yeah, I took a bit of a... what are we looking at?
The support has been played. Does that mean Natalie actually went first and it was just a pass back over?
Oh, if this is turn 1 for Ryuki after Natalie's had a turn, that is terrible. You're right. If Ryuki's playing a supporter, that means Natalie had a full turn where she did nothing. Oh, and that's already game 1. Ryuki's already won game 1. Natalie has nothing. Ryuki wins game 1. We're going to game 2 with less than 2 minutes taken off the clock.
With an unfortunate start from Natalie, Ryuki was able to knock out her one Pokemon in one turn in under 1 minute. He was one game away from taking that crown from his own creation.
This, Ryuki saying, look, I don't need to muck about with all that. I'm going to block your items, and I'm just going to get the KO next turn.
Yep, so then just kind of slowing the game down that little bit further, trying to bide himself a little bit more time. Does have double turbo energy, remember, in hand already, so that retreat of that Terrapagos EX having to using, of course, the Latias EX's Skyliner to be able to maneuver around.
Orders coming down,
it's
that's
big.
a big card.
Is that
and
it?
There we go. It looks like we are getting this Natalie win game 2 there.
Yeah,
with a lot of prizes all in one go. We had the KO on the active. We had the KO on the bench. We had the KO with Dusknoir. We had Natalie building up a fantastic turn.
Game 2 was a masterclass from Natalie, building up to a 5-prize turn and leveling out the score 1-1. The next game was for it all.
We are going. It is game 3. The winner of this game will be your European champion.
This is big. Hisuian Heavy Ball allowing to check all those prizes. That one of your best starters in Ryuki's deck in this scenario is actually having access to back order. This could be a massive, massive turn, Ross.
Forest Seal Stone comes out straight away. Obviously, that Ancient Booster Energy Capsule coming out as well. You're going to need that. Those are the obvious choices for back order. And you get to put it straight onto Oranguru and then use it for, oh yeah, it's Precious Trolley, getting all of your basic Pokemon out. Whatever 5 basic Pokemon Ryuki wants to get on the board here are coming.
Here we go. Look at all the pieces.
And there we go. Ryuki is going to be your European International Champion.
Today we're joined by Ryuki Okada, your EUIC champion. He's also the player who brought Dragapult EX back into the spotlight and helped shape it into the powerhouse it is today. Ryuki-san, 本日はありがとうございます。まずは簡単に自己紹介をお願いできますか？
僕の名前は、岡田隆起です。で、EUIC で優勝しました。先日行われた EUIC で優勝したのと、今シーズンだとリージョナルでも、ドルトムントで優勝しました。
はい、私の最初の質問。ドラパート EX が最初に登場したいとき、多くのプレイヤーはすぐに見切りをつけました。なぜあなたはこのカードに可能性があると感じたのですか？
僕の友達の、伊藤慎太郎、に、デッキをチャンピオンズ、伊藤慎太郎がチャンピオンズリーグで、ドラパルト EX のデッキを持っていって、そこかなりいい好成績を出して、その後に、その1週間後、2週間後ぐらいに、ドラパルト EX のデッキ、ちょうど大会としてはリージョナルドルトムントがあって、で、ドラパルト EX いいな、環境に合ってるなって思ったんで、本人に連絡して、デッキをチューニングして持っていきました。
初期のドラパートデッキの奥はピジョトのようなエンジンをつけていましたが、あなたはそれ、使は日本語難しい。
合ってます。
あなたはそれを使わず代わりにヨノワルに注目しました。なぜそのような選択をしたのですか？
これも、伊藤慎太郎が、使っていて、結構、い いいなって思ったのと、あとヨノワールがあるとやはり当時流行っていたルギア V スターデッキや、リザードン EX のデッキに対して、かなり優勢に戦えて、ルギア V スターだったらアーギオスを2体同時に倒せたりとか、あとはリザードン EX だったら、ヒドット EX を最速で倒せたりとか、結構いろんな戦い方ができるデッキだなって思ったので持っていきました。
ルギア強いね。
ルギア強いです。
ドートムンドであなたのドラパートデッキがついに結果を出しました。あの大会はあなたにとってどのようなものでしたか？
ドラパルトで、あの大会に勝ってやはりいろんな選手に注目されて、日本でも結構大盛り上がりの、大会になっていて、やはり最初に、TPCI で、権利、日本人が権利を取るのって初だったんで、もうかなりいろんな国の人が盛り上がって結構いい効果を埋めたのではないかなと思っていたのと、あと僕自身も WCS が2022年以来だったんで結構それは嬉しかったです。
今年の EUIC の決勝では今度はドラパートを相手に戦う立場でした。それはどんな気持ちでしたか？
やはり、回ってしまうと結構きついマッチアップだったんで、ワンターンキル OTK を決めるような形で、考えていたんですけど、ただ回った時にどれぐらいスボミで止まってくれるかで勝負しようかなって思ってました。かなりきついマッチだなと思ってました。
モモワル強いファイナル。
モモワル強い。
あなたの初期、構築から始まり、今では最も使用されているデッキとなったドラパート、その成長を見てどのように感じていますか？
ドラパルト、結構一番最初僕が使った時から、結構もう次の週ぐらいからずっとヨノワールが流行っていて、もう今に至るまでずっとヨノワールがもうメインの、サポーターとしてヨノワールが大活躍してるんですけど、結構嬉しい反面、やはりこれぐらいまでデッキパワーがあるデッキを使ってたんだなっていうので自信を持てるような形ですね。かなりデッキパワーが高いデッキになってるので、今後もさらに進化を続けるんじゃないかなと思ってます。
The future is bright for Dragapult. It's clearly the best deck in the format in Japan right now, and post-rotation it should continue its dominance. It's won multiple city leagues and even took down Miyagi Champions League.
Boss of the Guardi. Here we go. Comes down to a flip. And it was heads. He gets to knock out the last two prize cards. And Dragapult gets the dub.
Thanks for watching and take care.